Hello YouTube.
Eclipses. They're truly one of nature's coolest phenomena, with especially a solar eclipse, the moment that the sun is fully covered by the moon, being extremely cool to see, although please don't look at it directly, it can be quite dangerous for your eyes. Now, that having been said, with the whole two moons in the sky, Tamriel, or rather the planet Nirn that Tamriel is on, is no stranger to the concept of an eclipse. In fact, there are multiple types of eclipse on Tamriel, each with their own effects and significance, with one of these eclipses where both moons align with the sun, revealing the so-called hidden third moon of Nirn, the Dark Moon, which is one of the strangest phenomena in the lore. So, today let us examine what happens during an eclipse and talk a bit about that mysterious third moon in the second half of the video, after the intro. So, eclipses. Like I said in the introduction, due to Tamriel having not one but two permanently visible moons in Master and Secunda, a solar eclipse, both partial variants and a full variant, are far less rare on Tamriel than it is here on Earth. You see, here on Earth we have to wait for the moon to perfectly line up with the sun before an eclipse happens, but on Tamriel, since there are two visibly present moons, the chances of one of the moons lining up with the sun is actually quite literally doubled, and due to Master and Secunda's trajectories, the chances become even higher. As such, eclipses are far less rare and more common to find on Tamriel than it is on Earth, with a full eclipse, which is quite rare in our world, happening at least several times a year. Now, when a regular eclipse happens on Tamriel, so one of the two visible moons lining up directly with the sun, that has some interesting consequences. First of all, we know that the people of Tamriel seem to see an eclipse as a bit of a bad omen of sorts, or some sort of sign of anger from the gods, at least to those uneducated in cosmology. And for good reason, because as a regular person not educated in cosmology, you would be absolutely terrified if something just blotted out the sun, and in our own universe it has been seen as a bad sign by ancient peoples as well. Now, while in our universe an eclipse does relatively little in terms of actual effects, on Tamriel there is, depending on the type of eclipse, a good reason as to why people would think an eclipse is punishment from the gods or some sort of bad omen. You see, days upon which an eclipse takes place are known as vampire days on Tamriel, where all types of undead are known to come out of their lairs more frequently and are encountered more often, probably because it makes it so that vampires and some other undead, at least for a short while the sun is blocked, aren't damaged by the sun, which can be quite a nuisance to the people of Tamriel, as there suddenly far more enemies abound. In the mobile game The Elder Scrolls Castles, it's even one of the bad effects that can happen to your kingdom, and your citizens may actually warn you of an upcoming eclipse that they perceived in their dreams, which then actually comes true. Although we don't know whether eclipses actually have some connection to dreams or if it's just some gameplay mechanic, but still, it's worth a mention. That having been said, while a regular eclipse makes vampires and other undead more bold to come out of their lairs, another type of eclipse, which I'll call a Bloodcursed eclipse for lack of an actual name, happens when the sun is shot with Auriel's bow using a blood-cursed elven arrow. An arrow tainted with the blood of a daughter of Coldharbour, a female vampire turned directly by Molag Bal himself. This type of eclipse seems to have similar effects to a normal eclipse, in that it makes vampires able to come out in the sunlight. Except that this time the effect lasts a full day, and instead of the sun being blocked by one of the moons, it's blocked by some type of dark magic. Although to the people of Tamriel, who wouldn't fully understand what's going on during one of these eclipses, this would probably seem functionally similar to an actual eclipse, as it looks much the same. And as such, the people of Tamriel see this type of eclipse also as a bad omen and possible anger of the gods, probably just like regular eclipses. Now, something interesting here is that the fact that Tamriel has two visible moons makes it possible for a so-called dark eclipse to occur. A dark eclipse is when both visible moons, Master and Secunda, align with the sun at the exact same time, so having both moons be blocking the sun and each other. And it's this type of double eclipse where things get really interesting, and where we have to talk eventually about that third moon. But first, Tamriel-wide, there seems to be this legend that those born under a double or dark eclipse are more gifted with magical powers, with some legendary mages apparently being born under double eclipses. Although the only one that we actually know of, and the only one that's named, is the legendary Breton mage Giron Vardengroot, who managed to make himself immortal and is the subject of several semi-fictional books in the Elder Scrolls universe. Although he's a subject for its own video, as the double eclipse is only a very small part of his tale. That having been said, observant viewers familiar with the lore of the series who've heard me talk about the moon so much will probably have wondered at this point, but what of the Kajhit, as their entire lives are dedicated to the stance of the moons, and the moon phases even determine what type of Kajhit, or first stock of Kajhit as they call it, they are born as. And because of this, eclipses do have special significance to the Kajhit. After an analysis of literally all dialogue mentioning eclipses in every Elder Scrolls game, I found that the Kajhit are the primary users of the word eclipse as a verb, so they will most often say stuff like, "Your power eclipses mine," or "Daryl's videos eclipse my videos in terms of quality," that kind of thing. Now, second of all, like I mentioned earlier in my video on the different types of Kajhiti first stocks, link in the description in case you want to watch that video, every combination of moon phases makes it so that the Kajhit born during this time are all of a type of first stock corresponding to these moon stances. For example, when Maser is waxing and Secunda is full, a Cathay Kajhit is born, one of the humanoid Kajhit types that we are familiar with and can sometimes play as. Meanwhile, if Maser is in its waning phase and Secunda is in its full phase, you get Kajhit of the Alfiq first stock, which are Kajhit as small as house cats. Or if both Maser and Secunda are both in their full phase, you get a Senshe, one of the big lion Kajhit walking on 4 legs. Now, a double eclipse when both moons align with the sun is by far the rarest of the moon stances, and just like with all stances of the moons, a unique first stock of Kajhit is born under these moon stances in the main. The main being a special type of Kajhit which is more sensitive to the moons and the call of the darkness, but is also considered a sacred type of Kajhit, which may become the spiritual leader of the Kajhit. Although if a main is already alive and another Kajhit is born under the double eclipse, they become their heir and will be named Lunar Champion. Although as a general rule there can also be just one heir to the main, so eventually if a main lives a very long time, there may be several so-called forgotten mains, but more on that in my video on the main, which I'll also put in the description in case you want to explore that topic a little bit further. As in the end, the part that I want to focus on with the main for now is the part where I said that the mains are more sensitive to the moons and specifically weak to the darkness, with them always at the risk of becoming a so-called Dro Ma'atra, or a dark Kajhit spirit corrupted and seduced by the Daedric Prince Namira, who are quite heavily featured in Kajhiti mythology, as every Kajhit in their mythology is at the risk of becoming one of these Dro Ma'atra. Although the mains are especially sensitive to this, and the given reason for this in Kajhiti mythology is that the mains are born under the so-called Dark Moon, the hidden third moon of Nirn. Now, this Dark Moon is an extremely strange and obscure part of the lore. It's a moon which is only visible when Maser and Secunda and the sun perfectly align. If this happens, a large dark shade can be observed behind the moons of a mysterious third moon, larger than both visible moons. This dark moon can best be seen upon these double eclipses by the Kajhit, who are more sensitive to the moons, although seemingly others can see the shade of the third moon too if they observe it closely at the height of a double eclipse. Now, just a little bit of a disclaimer. We haven't actually seen the third moon ever in any of the games. We have seen it in Kajhiti artwork, we have seen it in concept art by the developers, so that's why I think it's real. But as far as I'm aware, we've never actually seen it. Even when we see a double eclipse, we've never really seen the third moon. But it does exist, at least in Legends, and the developers made concept art for it, so it's probably real. But I'll be honest with you, the only explanation for the existence of the third moon comes from Kajhiti legend, and as far as I've been able to gather, none of the other cultures have legends about the third moon, and the Kajhiti myths about it are extremely unreliable, as basically all Tamrielic creations myths are unreliable, meaning that everything that I'm about to tell you may as well be untrue, but it's the only explanation in the lore that we have about the third moon, so if suddenly some piece of content, being an Elder Scrolls Online expansion or eventually Elder Scrolls 6 comes out and contradicts this piece of lore, just be warned and I'll make an updated video. Because you see, the Kajhit believe in a creation myth which has common elements with several of the other creation myths that we find among Tamriel's cultures. Just like many others, they believe that the mortal plane was created by the god Lorkhan, or their Kajhiti version, which they name Lorkash. Now, in almost every creation myth, Lorkhan is seen as the trickster or betrayer who tricked some gods, who would become the divines and other Adric spirits, into creating the mortal world by giving away some of their power. And upon discovering this, in many cultures there's a legend that the other gods punished Lorkhan for this by ripping out his heart and flinging it across the world, which is how we ended up with the heart of Lorkhan under the Red Mountain. And some cultures then believe that the remains of Lorkhan's dead body became the two moons, Masser and Secunda. Now, the Kajit also believe a variation of these events, but crucially they believe that their version of Lorkhan, or Lorkash, was born in the darkness of the void, and his heart held a great darkness as a result. They believe that this darkness in his heart, so in Lorkash's heart, became self-aware and became the Daedric prince Namira, the Daedric prince of darkness and decay. It was the darkness Namira in his heart which led to the betrayal of the other gods during creation, which trapped them in their own created mortal plane. And this then led to the whole heart ripping out, which gave us the heart of Lorkhan under the Red Mountain. However, contrary to several other creation myths, in the Kajiti myth, Lorkash actually survives this encounter of his heart being ripped out, as the self-aware dark Namira took the place of his heart in the wound and started fulfilling the functions of a heart, becoming the so-called Dark Heart, which actually plays a whole role in the Elder Scrolls Online Skyrim expansion. Now, this Dark Heart at this mythical time was a dark force keeping Lorkash alive for at least a little bit more time, until the Daedric prince Azura found out and then cured Lorkash of this darkness, ripping out the Dark Heart Namira and throwing it inside the void in the cosmos. While at the same time, a dark imitation of Lorkash, the mythical moon beast born out of this Dark Heart, crept out of his corpse to stalk the heavens and the moons, or the so-called lunar lattice in Kajiti mythology. Now, Lorkash, having his heart ripped out twice and a dark imitation of himself having left him, now finally died, and Azura then placed his cleansed and purified corpse in the heavens to dance with the moons, to be an eternal guardian of the sky as the third moon. As in Kajiti creation myth, Masser and Secunda, or Joan and Jode as they call them, the two visible moons, predated all of these events and already existed for far longer. Now, even if this belief is true, it's not uncontroversial in Kajiti belief, as while ancient Kajiti texts describe the third moon as a sky guardian of sorts created by Azura out of Lorkash's corpse, more modern Kajit describe the third moon as being the corpse of Lorkash having to eternally follow the two visible moons, Joan and Jode, across the sky as a punishment for his betrayal during creation. And like I said, both takes may as well be untrue, as all Tamrielic creation myths don't need to be trusted, and they all need to be taken with a pinch of salt. Not just a pinch of salt, but more like a whole spoonful of salt, as all of them are unreliable and merely a set of beliefs of a certain culture, not given truth. So, what is the truth of this third moon? We don't know. We know that there's an ancient and mysterious Kajiti temple visited by some ascending mains known as the Den of Lorkash, which allegedly is on the third moon at the end of a spiritual journey called the Two Moons Path, where they are eventually transported to the third moon and they may glimpse parts of the future. I mean, we can even visit this realm in the Elder Scrolls Online, although I personally have some doubts as to whether or not this realm is truly the Dark Moon, or some other type of pocket realm which the Kajit mythology believes is on the Dark Moon. As again, these games are just all full of unreliable narrators, so sometimes something in me doubts it, despite not really having anything in terms of enough expertise to really back it up. So that same spoon of salt that you used to doubt creation a bit earlier, use it to doubt my interpretation of all this, because it might as well be that this place is truly on the Dark Moon. In fact, it's because of all of this extreme uncertainty that I wasn't even sure if I should make this video, but it's a topic so interesting that I couldn't not tell you about it, as the third moon is a subject of just endless fascination for me, and one that I really hope that we learn about, especially learn about other races and cultures' interpretation of at some point in the future, be it the Elder Scrolls 6 or another expansion, or maybe even an Elder Scrolls novel if my prayers ever come true and we get more of those. And that was basically all I could tell you about Eclipses and the Dark Moon, and I sincerely hope that you enjoyed it and that I managed to teach you something new about the Elder Scrolls universe, or at least, if all of this happens to be untrue, and happens to be just unreliable Kajhit creation myth, at least managed to, you know, get you to think about the Elder Scrolls universe. And if I did, why not give the video a like or one of those hype boost things? It would really help me out. And now it's time for me to vocally thank my top Patreon subscribers: Goblark, Bernardo Binda, Gabriel Binda, King Chris 20, Volkjor Vargonia, RB Dash, Lexicon, Providence, Polycom, Sir Otter, Sword of Bushido, Rakai, Spaceman, James Lynch and Bara Dermas. It's thanks to these people and all the other lovely people on screen that this channel stays alive, as they are my Patreon supporters and my YouTube members. And thanks to them I can continue making these videos, so huge thanks to them. There's links in the description in case you want to join them on screen. See you next video.